I mean, I have an iPhone 13. My last one was an iPhone 6. So I take a while to get new shit, So anyway, we're in the office. We're above ground now. Cori, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's my once every 4-year confessional.
I actually need to be better at getting guests back on, because I say I had guests on in 2020 and I was like, I'll have you back soon. And I'm like, my booker, who's me, sucks at that. I'm like, Doug Kallmeyer, I'll have you on in a few months. No, 4 years later. I still need to reach out to this guy. But
you're getting up there in episodes, right? What are you on, 170, 180?
I don't know, 70 something. I don't think 80.
170 something.
No, 170 something. Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I have a part of me that has a hard time taking compliments. I want to minimize it immediately. I do know that there's
you're sticking with it.
Yeah. I would say there's of all the people who start podcasts, I think most of them fizzle out after 10 episodes or something. There's maybe 2%, or maybe it's a larger percentage that just keep it. But I have a pretty easy format. I'm not burning a lot of cognitive bandwidth on this thing. So anyway, I want to thank you publicly for taking me to the Jimmy Dore show. I've never, I know about Jimmy Dore, heard about him, never saw an episode, unless he's on Rogan or something. But yeah, that was fun. I had no idea. I didn't even know his preferred drink is Negronis. I didn't even know what a Negroni was. I was at bingo last night. I saw Negroni on the menu and I was like, all right, when I'm not in Lent and I can drink alcohol, I will try a Negroni. Anyway, I digress.
So you learned something from the show.
What did I learn from the show? Other than that Negronis exist. Well, actually, no, how did you first get introduced to Jimmy Dore? Do you remember who introduced you to him?
It was 2017, and it must have been some sort of YouTube recommendation. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just remember it was 2017 specifically. I think that's when, Trump had just been elected, so there was the whole media, Russiagate and that kind of stuff going on. So, and I think that's when the media kind of got compartmentalized, or it's kind of overblown, or
that's when it got compartmentalized. I feel like it was compartmentalized.
Well, okay, so this is a discussion that happens a lot. People look at, okay, well, what happened? We had Occupy Wall Street, right? And
which was
2008.
2008, yeah.
Right. And that was 99%, which is still a valid thing, right? But then I think that was too successful. So then kind of there was a top down. That's when you saw the rise of personality politics. I'm transgender, I'm gay, I'm bi, I'm that.
Identity politics.
Identity politics, yeah.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden that whole 99% became 0.5%, 200 of those. So everybody kind of has their own niche politics and everything. So then we have kind of I guess that's kind of gone full circle now. Where in 2016 we had the the Russiagate thing, and I remember hearing about the P-tape thing. I'm like, oh, that's
you're talking about the Steele dossier.
Yeah, I'm like, that sounds real sensational. Let's see. But I mean, a lot of people still think that there's something to that.
Well, that's I'm glad you bring that up, because I remember, I guess the high level topic we're talking about is maybe the how people get their news, the disintegration of different bubbles, and then the dismantling of trust, or what's true. Because I feel like I don't, and again, I'm horribly misinformed on this. So I can't stand on solid ground and say most people get their news from social media, but you might be able to. But I want to just speak from my own experience that I remember if I hear something on a podcast or something, I'll be like, oh, okay. There was an HBO show with what's his name from Jeff Daniels. I can't remember he was a news anchor. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I can't remember the name either.
I can't remember the name of the show, but I remember like in that show, there was like the phrase double confirm. You need like a journalist has something, they hear a source and they're like, do you have it confirmed from another source, another independent source? Because we can't run the story until we have two like trusted allies who are saying the same thing. And then it's double confirmed. Now we can run the story. Right. And so when I hear a piece of news on any platform, if it's a platform that I'm like, oh, I've already sort of have earned trust or vested trust, I still, because of the landscape that we live in, I don't know what it was like to live in the Walter Cronkite era. You and I are 84 babies, 1984, born in 1984. And so I'm just like, well, let me be skeptical of that. But if I hear someone else, like if I hear another trusted, like let's say my father-in-law, like I'm like, he's not a news source, but I have enough earned trust in him and like his international position to be like, he's he has to be well informed, and he's also tapping into nodes of networks internationally. So I'm like, all right, if he's saying it and this other person that I trust is saying it, I feel good about it. Now, if they disagree, now I feel lost. And the Steele dossier would be a good example of that, because I heard on a podcast, hey, that whole like Russiagate thing, like the Steele, it's like, it's not true. It's not true. And then I brought that up to my father-in-law, and he's like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean it's not true? And then so I'm like, okay, so so then I get a little lost. Now, you might just think, a reasonable person might just think, well, Robin, you can do more than 3 sources. Like, call me or like ask a third person.
Or like Google it, just look it up, see what, right?
Well, I guess.
Or I mean, that can be more difficult now these days. I should be more careful about that, because Google is also part of it, right? There's like facts that you'll Google and they'll be not. You're like, wait, but that's not entirely correct.
Let me give two, if I may. If you're chomping at the bit, I'll shut up and I'll plant these flags. But I'll give two other examples. Well, first is like, I don't know, whenever Kellyanne Conway went on Meet the Press, this was back when our TV was up in the family room, whatever year that was. And she said alternative facts. And Chuck Todd was like, wait a minute, what? And I remember being like, wait a minute, that's a silly construct. A fact by its concept, by its construct, is something that there can't be 2 different ones. You can have your own facts, but there's only one true fact. So when Kellyanne Conway is saying, oh, well, these are alternative facts, I'm like, what is happening, right? What is happening? Okay, that was the first sort of like a palpable shift in my relationship with legacy, now what's referred to as legacy media, the broadcast channels, and being like, not that I don't trust Chuck Todd or NBC or Meet the Press, even though I'm probably should have some skepticism there, as is evidenced by your reaction to what I'm saying. But I certainly, like Kellyanne Conway, I was just like, okay, what the fuck what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? The second thing I wanted to say, and then I will shut up and I will stop being a mic hog, is a person close to me, I will not name them, but a person close to me was talking to me about, did you hear what Elon Musk said? Did you hear that Elon Musk said, like the vulnerability of the Western world is empathy? And I said that sounds like some sociopathic shit right there. I mean, that sounds terrible,
like
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm like, whoa. But I bit, right? I bit the hook. I was like, oh man, like how do I now think about how has that shifted my perspective on Elon Musk? I mean, a lot of people hate this guy, but when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's not good. That's not good, right? And then I'm working out, taking a shower, listening to the full interview of Musk on Rogan, and I hear the full context. and I hear him say, you know, the exploitation of empathy is the West's biggest vulnerability or biggest weakness or whatever. Again, I'm paraphrasing. I could be getting the quote wrong, but once you zoom out from a clip and you're like, well, you've totally decontextualized it. And that again is a thing that makes it hard to trust. Or I don't know if you've heard like lies spread 6 times faster than the truth or whatever. Anyway, I did say I would shut up. So what are your Cori Grieb,
I
what are
think
your thoughts?
social media, I'm sure, is capitalized on that. You know, lies or emotions, playing on people's emotions too. Manipulating, you know, because if something causes you outrage on social media, you're 10 times more likely to repost it, right?
Yeah.
Speaking in context, though, I did want to kind of rewind a little bit.
Let's do it.
To set the context for, we're in 2025. We're doing a live video chat miles and miles away, probably like 30 or 40 miles away, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's 1 o'clock, or it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday. And it's been 536 days that the genocide in Gaza is going on. Just to hit that point, I heard something on a podcast the other day, and I thought it bared repeating.
Okay.
So, there's a journalist that was killed 2 days ago in Gaza. He was targeted, but he wrote a statement, and it was shared with everyone posthumously. And it goes, "If you're reading this, it means I've been killed, most likely targeted by the Israeli occupation forces. When this all began, I was only 21 years old, a college student with dreams like anyone else. For the past 18 months, I've dedicated every moment of my life to my people. I documented the horrors in northern Gaza minute by minute, determined to show the world the truth they tried to bury. I slept on pavements, in schools, in tents, anywhere I could. Each day was a battle for survival. I endured hunger for months, yet I never left my people's side. By God, I've fulfilled my duty as a journalist. I risked everything to report the truth, and now I'm finally at rest. Something I haven't known in the past 18 months. I did all this because I believe in the Palestinian cause. I believe this land is ours, and it has been the highest honor of my life to die defending it and serving its people. I ask you now, do not stop speaking about Gaza. Do not let the world look away. Keep fighting, keep telling our stories until Palestine is free. For the last time, Hossam Shabat from northern Gaza." And I just thought that was kind of powerful, and I just wanted to share that and repeat it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing it.
And kind of going back to circle back to what we were talking about before I was contexting. I don't think Gaza is talked about enough. And I think that's a big part of the media too. Everything's very quick. There's so much, everybody's so inundated with, oh, here's a tweet, here's fact, here's a thing, hear what Elon said, hear what Trump did, you hear all the stuff, and it's like, whoa, what? And things kind of suck. I mean, suck for people enough that they're like, hey, you know, I'm trying to get to my job, get home, pick up the kids, do all the things, juggle everything, and you might hear this or that, and you're like, oh, well, that sucks. So it's I don't know how to wrap that up with a bow, but I guess
I can pick it up.
Our media is so disjointed, so frantic, and so preying on people's emotions, and it seems to me to be like a eternal Stockholm syndrome. Where the media just keep poking, oh, maybe you'll get this and this and this, and it's as opposed to the Walter Cronkite era, which neither of us have seen, where news was not, companies weren't trying to make money off of news. It was actually a part of their programming. They had to devote to news so that they could have their license, so that they could broadcast before the internet and everything else. News wasn't supposed to make money. They're just reporting the facts as it comes over the ticker. Okay, this happened. and now you have it. It's legalized since 2012 that the United States government can legally, as opposed to illegally, what they did before, they can legally infiltrate the media organizations and have them print things that are untrue in order to national security something. So so it's legal and it's happening all the time, and you can see it happening. You're like,
When
oh,
you say, let me just jump in and say, when you say national security something, you're referring to the justification for why the government was able to transform legislation was in service of our homeland defense, or not having another 9/11 happen, or like to keep
yeah,
the public safe.
Right. Oh, it's called the Smith Modernization Act, which so I guess the Smith Month Act came from 1948. Originally, it was so that it was something put in so that the United States government couldn't do that. And then the modernization, they said, never mind.
They repealed it, or they amended it?
They modernized it.
Okay. And you said this was in 2012?
Yes. It was introduced in 2010 and made legislation in 2012. But that also goes to the whole Occupy timing as well, when we seem to change the kind of national discussion. Because class, I think, consciousness, 99%, that kind of stuff was getting a little too high. So we had to kind of divide people more, which is kind of interesting too. I by focusing on people's differences, you divide them. You're not, it's done under the banner of like inclusivity. Like we should have everybody involved. Well, yeah, we should. But it's there's a sketch by Ryan Long, who does Boys Cast. He's a comedian, and it was like a racist and like someone who supports DEI, and they agreed on like so many different things. Like, hey, I should be able to segregate my business, and they're like, yeah, we should be able to do that. And it's like, wait, hold on.
That reminds me of a graphic where if you take a political ideology, if you're representing something in two-dimensional space, like just on a sheet of paper, and you, I guess you could draw a circle, but like, yeah, if the farther around, the farther extreme right or extreme left you get, it's not as if those things are. It seems at first glance that, oh, you're just getting farther and farther apart, but there's some overlap where they like horseshoe around and they actually get closer and closer to each other, not just by nature of their extreme positions, but like you're saying, that sketch, the comedic sketch, is trying to illustrate.
Yeah. And I mean, see that in politics too, with like the extreme left Bernie and the extreme right Donald Trump, right? They had the same base essentially. It was a populist base. It was targeted at working class people, and the Democrats have seemed to abandon that, and then the Republicans always take advantage of it. I guess you could say both parties take advantage of it, but it's disillusioning.
Well, I mean, look, the thing that I associate to when you're, and again, I'm ignorant to the what did you call Smith Modernization Act? Ignorant to that. I've never heard of that. But the thing that I associate to is like Citizens United, to say like something happens. And again, I really prefer to take the position of ascribing goodwill and good intentions, and knowing full well that the road to hell.
It's a good place to start from.
Yeah. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Like, there's numerous examples of that. But I think about how Citizens United has really corrupted the campaign season, for example, or corrupted donations. And when I think about the Smith Modernization Act, I'm thinking how it's corrupted and polluted the information landscape. You know, again, if your intentions are noble, say we want to keep everyone safe, but you said, Cori, that shift allows the U.S. government to insert falsehoods, misdirects,
Right.
omissions. I'm guessing.
Yeah. Even malinformation isn't wrong information. It's information that's true, that's inconvenient. So if you ever hear that and you malinformation, what's that? Oh, it's real information. And I don't think that either of those, the Citizens United or the Smith Modernization Act, I'm just saying those provided a legal cover.
Right.
Not to say that wasn't happening well beforehand.
Right. I remember you made that distinction.
Right. So it's like Operation Mockingbird was something from the 60s, 70s, where the CIA essentially infiltrated all of the media organizations up to the AP, Reuters, et cetera, et cetera. So if they had something to push, they could push it. And that's never been dismantled. It's declassified. You can look it up.
Operation Mockingbird, and that was initiated in the 60s, you said?
Yeah, 60s, 70s. And they basically said, hey, if the U.S. citizen doesn't believe anything that they read, then our work is complete. We've done our job. And it seems like they've done their job.
Wait, now who's saying that? The CIA?
That's a quote from an ex-CIA operative that worked with Operation Mockingbird.
Okay, well, this is now what comes up for me is a conversation. Let me see if I can pull it up while I'm talking. A really concerning conversation. Oh, Maria Ressa, Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart, most listeners will be familiar. Jon Stewart is the host of The Daily Show. He also has a weekly podcast called The Weekly Show. And one of his guests, Maria Ressa, the conversation he had with her, what's coming up for me is her. I think she used to live in the Philippines, and perhaps because of what happened to her, and I'm still a little unclear on it, but I think she was arrested. I could be getting this wrong, but she was trying to point out the problems with Duterte, and I can't remember how she got out or how she got freed, but she was kind of in a pattern recognition way, kind of pointing to Viktor Orban and Duterte and perhaps Kim Jong-un, although maybe she didn't mention him, or Putin, but basically kind of doing this pattern recognition thing where it's like the authoritarianism is able to, it can't, here's the metaphor, okay? If a seedling from a tree is coming in and lands in the earth, but the wind and the rain is too strong, it can't actually seed and grow a root. So we could say that the light of truth or freedom of information, or having a unified, not like all this disintegrated bubble news media landscape, but having a unified central information that is trustworthy, that is open to scrutiny, that is not corrupted, can be verified to not be corrupted. That's the wind and the rain. But if that goes away, then this seedling can take root, and that seedling would be authoritarianism. And so she was kind of talking about how the preconditions that you need, if I'm losing you, let me simplify it this way. The preconditions that you need for a government to transform into an authoritarian regime would be to first knock out the citizens' ability to trust the news information, to trust that. So when I hear you say an ex-CIA agent was like, okay, if the American public isn't trusting, then we've accomplished our goal.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I'm just doing 1 + 1 and saying, does the CIA then want authoritarian regime in the US? That doesn't make sense to me.
Not in the U.S. and on the globe.
Oh, okay. Okay. Not in just the U.S., but
it's global dominance, right? We want air dominance, we want water it's to dominate all the spectrums, right? And that's what the CIA has been charged with, really.
But for who to dominate?
For them and those who shall not be named, right? The powers that shouldn't be, or however you want to call them. The people that are really the richest people in the world who don't have the money in their name. You'll never be able to track down all of the financial things there.
Well, I guess I have a hard time following that line of thinking. Like I guess what the things that immediately fill into my mind when I hear you say that is that sounds like a recipe for chaos, not orderly dominance. Like, and I know you could.
Well, no, I mean, but that's keeping people dominating an area. Chaos is a pretty important part of that, right?
Oh, for sure. You're right.
The one side knock out the other, and you're just looking from the sidelines, being like, "Hey, see these people." Right.
That's true. You could say it's going to be hard to take power if there's order here. Let's fuck things up, and then when it's all disordered, then we'll swoop in and kind of reorder things.
Yeah, shock. It's the shock doctrine, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Let's destroy the Middle East, and then we'll order it. We'll put Al Qaeda in charge of Syria, much more orderly, right?
Cori, but I feel like I don't have any hard citations to back this up, but I just sort of feel in my bones, which is just like sounds like some left winger saying, "Well, my truth is," but I do feel in my bones that that's not practical, not sustainable. It seems foolish to have that kind of a mission, to have that kind of an agenda.
Chaos?
Well, to cause chaos in service of establishing a dominance or an order.
Well, I mean, how would
it doesn't seem sustainable.
Some would say the military industrial complex, which Truman warned about in the 50s, and then John F. Kennedy also warned about shortly before he was
assassinated.
Deleted. Yeah. You could say they've kept pretty dominant by creating chaos all over the world. You had Vietnam, which was a disaster, military industrial complex, contracts keep going, right? And we had all the wars from our ages. We had Iraq 1, 2, Afghanistan. There's a widely circulated clip of General Wesley Clark saying, like, right after 9/11, maybe, yeah, I think it was right after somebody came into his office, and he's been out training in the desert, training troops or something. Some guy says, "Hey, we're going to be invading 7 countries." He's like, what? He says, "Yeah, Libya, Iraq, Syria, Iran, like all the countries have invaded, except for Iran. That's the one that we haven't gotten to yet." But he listed all of them. Yeah, Libya, Somalia, Iraq, Iran. Let's see. And Wesley Clark was like, "Well, is it classified?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's classified." He said, "Well, don't tell me about it then, whatever." But we did eventually do that. So creating some chaos can have good benefits for industries that are positioned to take advantage of it.
Okay, well, that makes sense, because now we're not thinking about sustainability. We're thinking about it's like timing a stock and saying, "I don't care what happens after I sell. I'm going to engineer this thing to make me rich." And then, like, if I have a way that I can do that, if I can influence the market and I know how to time it, okay, we're not talking about sustainability. We're talking about exploitation. So, okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the war profiteers and from all World War I, World War II, the people who are making money off the war. We're funding both sides of the war. There wasn't like a good guy and a bad guy thing.
Which war are you talking about?
Like World War II, you had Ford, and that's where the Bushes famously got a lot of their money, was selling arms to the Germans. That's widely sourced. It's disappointing, but yeah, it was like the Kennedy family got their money from bootlegging. And then it became more mafia connected. Prescott, Bush, those guys got the money from arms trading in World War II. If you look back at even the robber barons, the Harrimans and stuff in the early 20th century, Carnegie, all those things, they made their money off of just extraction of wealth from the common people.
Okay. Here's a question that's coming up in my mind, because you just like last week's guest, I was like, I need to listen to the episode and go through and take notes, and like it's like reading a book where you have all the citations and the footnotes, and you're like, that's it, I'm going to come back to that. Like in order to fully grasp this, I would need to go to the source, right? But this is what's coming up in my mind. And you can apply this to any portion of what you just shared, as much or as little as you want. In your view, Cori, what would be sort of the karmic balancing of, because I'm taking what you're saying as the perspective of, look at all of these like acts of evil or acts of greed, right? Put whatever, what's the opposite of a virtue? Flaw? I don't know. Like put whatever word you want. What would be the karmic balancing of that? If you had God power, you could press a button and you could be like, okay, the righteous justice, we shine a spotlight on it, all the roaches scatter, and we get to like make it right again. And I know that's a big question. That's why I said, like, frame it however big or small you want. But what would that karmic rebalancing look like?
Yeah, I mean, the meek shall inherit the earth, right?
All right, you're gonna have to be more specific.
Right. So, I mean, no, that's a great question, and I don't have an answer.
Well, even
I
at
think
a low,
if any, right. People say, well, start acting locally, right?
Or I mean, just low resolution. Just what's the first thing that came into your mind when I asked you that? What's the first example or act?
More cowbell, honestly. No. Yeah. So I don't know, that's a great question, but I think anyone who tells you that they have the answer, they're probably trying to sell you something.
Well, I understand that is the cynical and skeptical view, and that has its place, and it's very welcome and valid. But I also prefaced it with like God mode, right? So we're not trying to sell anything. We're actually in the service of karmic rebalancing. Like,
I don't know. Some sort of socialism, I think, would be good if you look at like the Nordic countries. Even though it's cold and depressing there, they seem to be pretty happy and have healthcare like the rest of the world. I don't know, honestly. In growing up, right, we learned about all the different types of governments. And
we were supposed to.
Yeah. Well, I just remember like the posters around the wall, like, oh, socialism is this, communism is this, autocracy is this. And from, just learning, I'm like, well, socialism or those seem more equal than the other ones. But, and then you're like, well, on paper, everything looks good. They all look great on paper. And it's about the implementation, right? So I don't see any of those systems having evolved to something better. And we live in such a global globe that I think all countries they have to compete on the global stage. So despite their intentions, they may have to act in a way that's not what their values really are. If any of them do, I don't know.
You're saying if for some countries, because of the how little resources they may have or little influence on the global stage, they would have to compromise their integrity in order to. They'd have to sacrifice some values in order to honor another value of like being relevant or surviving.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at so to open another thing, if you look at the dominance, like the United States dominance of Latin America, that's primarily been done through the IMF, USAID, the World Bank. So say, hey, you want to survive, right? Do you want us to like open our markets to you? Okay, well, now you have to privatize your water system. And now, so there's those kinds of deals like, hey, we'll give you a huge loan and then you can do all this stuff. Oh, but you have to use our contractors for it. Those kinds of things. I think China's made some inroads in Africa because they've been providing more infrastructure with those deals than we do. Like there's a lot of roads and rails and stuff being built
Of a Belton quality, of a Belton variety.
A belted, yeah.
Or Belton, right? The Belton Road.
Yeah, or the Silk Road, or which one's the Belt Road?
I don't know. I want to sound smart. You're much smarter than me. I'm going to look it up right now. I know that it has to do with
the Silk Road goes from China to Europe, and they actually have a train.
The Belt and Road Initiative, known in China as the One Belt, One Road, and sometimes referred to as the New Silk Road, is a global infrastructure development strategy adopted by the government of the People's Republic of China in 2013 to invest in more than 150 countries and international organizations. I think China's eating our lunch when it comes to like taking initiatives to have more influence over other countries around the world regarding development, industry, manufacturing, influence. But again, I don't say that as like and therefore we should like try to catch up in the Olympic race or something. I don't know that it's necessarily a noble or good thing to do. And that's kind of what I mean is like when I asked that big grand question of like, what would karmic rebalancing look like? I think you're right to say, well, no one really, how could anyone have a coherent answer to that? But again, I trust my instincts that the thing that, if I answer my own question, the thing that immediately emerges in my mind is, well, there would it's built into the question of rebalancing. It's like, if you took something that doesn't belong to you, like, clearly the right thing to do is to give it back. And human nature is such with fear and greed and the rest of human nature. It's like, that's easier said than done. Or like you said, with communism or socialism, it's like on paper, these things could work, but like also just, I've never claimed to be a good student of history, but my understanding is that if you just look at the past iterations, like, of socialism or communism, those don't seem like things that you'd want to. There's atrocities that you're like, we don't want to recreate that, But I also think the other thing inherent in the answer is you're talking about exploitation that's kind of happening on like the back end of something. It's like there's the things that the public is aware of, and then there's the things that are happening, with suits behind closed doors. I don't want to say in the shadows, but you know what I mean. Like, so part of the rebalancing, karmic rebalancing of undoing evil or paying for sins, for example, in this sort of spiritual talk, is like, stop hiding in the dark. Like, let there be light in this stuff in the shadows so that you can't sneak around and trick people and lie to people. And that's also something that human nature is like, well, don't let that happen. Don't unlock the door, because if that does happen, we're all going to jail, or we have to pay back. We don't get to continue living our awesome lifestyle or whatever. That's whatever we've become accustomed to and comfortable with. People are attached to, comfort, for example. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why telling the truth can be a revolutionary act in universal times of universal deceit, right?
Yeah. That sounds like a quote. Are you quoting someone?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I'm sure somebody else more important said that at some point. And what words could we say that we did not hear? Right.
I don't get it. You've lost me. What do you mean?
I could make up a word, but you wouldn't know what it meant.
Yeah, that's true.
I could say like fragilistic. You'd be like, what's that?
But what's the relevance of that though? I'm not tracking.
Oh, well, we can only say what we've already heard.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Yes. But I'm still help me connect that to this rebalancing construct that I was talking about of, paying.
There's nothing new under the sun. There's no originality. The best form of compliment is imitation, right? Did that tie it back?
I don't think so. No,
those are just more things that other people said.
Those are just more phrases. but I guess I've been accused many times of having, sort of an idealistic point of view and sort of this like being like, Robin, that's not realistic, or that would be nice in theory, but that's, you just, you're like looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, and you're not taking into account like the necessary evils that need to happen in order for this thing to like keep in order for Earth to keep like moving forward or whatever,
So I guess that goes back to that if we can't agree on what we should think are facts, how would we even determine that?
Well, I know, and this is the thing that Maria Ressa was saying that is like the precursor to the fall of democracy. The precursor to the fall of democracy is the citizens can't trust what's real or what's true.
When was Citizens United? Was that
2009? Let me look it up.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that
2010.
2010, right? Yeah. Also in that same time frame we were talking about.
Of the Occupy, like 2 years before Occupy?
Or after, I think after, right?
Oh, after, sorry. After, yes.
It's that same time frame. And I think that just legally made it possible to contribute ungodly amounts of money to campaigns. But before then, they would still do that through other methods, I'm pretty sure. And it seems like we're undoing everything that we were sold on in the 90s by like the new, there was the dot-com bubble, and I guess writing that, it's like, hey, we're not going to need manufacturing jobs. Hey, let's just all outsource it. Hey, here's NAFTA. George Bush couldn't pass it, but hey, I'm Bill Clinton and I feel your pain, so here's some more. And now we look back, maybe NAFTA wasn't so good. Also the banking regulations that were repealed then led to that huge financial crisis in 2008. I can't remember that one off the top of my head right now, but I was working at a bank in 2008, and my boss at the time told me about that. He's like, actually, Bill Clinton, it's like Goldman or anyway.
Goldman Sachs, the subprime lending?
No, it was another law. It separated the banks like deposits from their investments. So you couldn't mix those. And then the law basically made it so, the bank, what they're holding can also be their investments. So you didn't need to separate them. And that's what all these banks went under. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like we're undoing that now. We're like onshoring all the companies now and saying like, maybe that wasn't a great idea.
Are you saying that sets us up to be vulnerable for it to repeat, to have that kind of
to do offshoring again?
Well, no, I guess if I'm following you, and I may not be, but are you saying that we could be, if what we're doing now continues, that we're vulnerable to having a repeat of what happened in 2008, of needing to bail out banks again?
Oh yeah, I mean the economy is a whole nother thing. That's kind of a whole.
It's a whole podcast. This whole separate podcast episode.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But it seems like I think that Wall Street already owned both of the political parties well before Citizens United. Just like our intelligence agencies were, dominating our news organizations before it was legal to do so.
So what you're saying is from my perspective, if I had my way and I could snap my fingers and Citizens United was undone, it wouldn't necessarily make things as clean as I wish they would be because of the influence that existed prior on the political parties.
Yeah, I don't think it changes anything. I don't think the laws really mean much when you get past a certain level, as we've seen.
What are you specifically referring to when you say "as we've seen"?
Oh, I mean, if you look at like any like the classified stuff, like there's the whole Signal story recently.
Oh, with the
texts on Signal.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so I have a number of thoughts on that. I'm like, well, actually, Signal's probably the most secure way they could have been doing it, just on the app side, open source. But on the other side, they also have like secure compartment. They have skips in their residences. Like they have equipment to do this.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the thing that boggled my mind is why would the people in the highest positions of power with the access to the most like secure ways to communicate use Signal, even though your point stands, Signal's highly
right. It's independently audited. It's open source. Anyone can look at it. They find some vulnerability. Hey, it's out there for everyone. So yes, I don't know it. It's one of those, another sensational news story, but it's like, oh, we're still talking about like classified information, like really, like, I don't know. It seems like both the parties do it, and it's just like, whatever.
Well, there's the other point of view here that I thought about was and again, this is cynical, but the sleight of hand, the next level chess master thing of like, actually it looks like it's incompetency, but what if it was an intentional, like, yeah, we know this journalist is going to be like, this is a mistake, and we know we can pretty much forecast when this journalist sees that what's going down in Yemen is real, they will go to the press and then they will be talking about this thing because we want them to be looking over here while we are taking care of things over there. Again, it's super conspiracy, super,
I mean, it's true on a macro level, because we're talking about that. We're not talking about the ceasefire ended, immediately 500 Palestinians dead, right? So we're not talking about that. We're talking about the Trump administration still sucks. Okay, cool.
When did the ceasefire end?
It was about, well, it depends on how you look at it.
Right.
Israel had almost 1,000 infractions, so you could say maybe it wasn't even really started.
It never started.
But
what were the infractions?
Killing people.
No, I know when you say
shooting people.
Yeah, just like constantly throughout the supposed ceasefire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, at least on paper. When did it end? On paper. Are you citing that because that happened around the same time or just before this?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always a story
to
not talk about Gaza or Israel.
Say again. Sorry.
There's always a story the media will pick up on to not cover the Gaza situation. But I'm glad that people are paying attention to it now that Trump's in office and being very putting the face of America back on America and not, somebody old that can't be prosecuted for crimes. At least we have somebody that can be prosecuted now. Going back to the whole classified information thing, if you remember, Trump was investigated for it, but it was like, oh, well, now he's president, so forget about the whole classified information. With Biden, the guy interviewed, and then they said, whoa, no court would convict him because he's too old.
That's there's something that really rubs me the wrong way with of all the implications that can be fear-inducing and cause harm. The thing that stuck out to me, and I don't know why this is the case, I'm not insightful enough to know why, but the thing that stood out the most to me was the fact that it's probably my sense of justice and wanting, like, if the schoolyard bully is like picking on this kid, it's like you want the authorities to like come in and like catch him. It's like it's what every superhero movie is. It's like Batman got the bad guy, right? Like it's this archetypally desired thing. It's why anyway. So when Trump won the election, and everyone was like, so that all the like the walls are closing in on him, the justice system is all coming in on him, and then it's like, well, now he won the election, and it's like, okay, like we have to drop it. And even like, again, citing chess, things that were done to delay hearings, they were like, let's delay, because if he wins, they sort of knew, like, if he wins, we'll have outlived it, we'll have outlasted it. And the whole, and then everyone talking about Trump, or I don't know if Trump is the one ever talks about this. I'm not really paying attention to him probably as much as I should be, but I've heard it in the bubbles of running for a third term. And I'm like, again, the cynical part of me is like, oh yeah, he's doing that to not for the same reason of like, so that he won't go to jail. It's like, because he got elected, those lawsuits got dropped. And there's a part of me that's like, that's why is that?
He doesn't need to have a third term. Biden already paved the way. He can just give everyone he knows blanket immunity. Done. Precedent's been set, It's good.
Oh, you're talking about all of the pardons? For listeners who are just listening to this, Cori is he's making the hands are washed clean gesture. Yeah.
Right, because
now Cori's at a strip club and he's making it rain. No, I'm just kidding.
There was a thing when the first Trump administration, as he was exiting office, they'd made a big deal of that. They're like, oh well, he might just give a blanket pardon or something. Trump was like, oh no, I never do that. And he didn't, right? And so then you fast forward 4 years later, and all those things are like, oh, I bet Trump's that would be a dangerous precedent. Well, Biden did it, so don't worry about it. It's okay.
It's again, the father in me is like, yes, I really, really get why you would want to protect your son. But it's, the hypocrisy is immense.
So getting back to the Stockholm syndrome and our national Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's a good way to look at like our politics and our media. I think that I'm liking that metaphor more and more. That's why I come here, Robin, is to figure this stuff out.
Well, but, people reach conclusions by talking out loud. So for people who may not know,
what's called the rubber ducky method. When you're working on something, you got to talk to your rubber ducky, and you talk. And so, like at work, we'll be like, "Oh, I'll be your rubber ducky. Tell me what's going on."
Is that a Sesame? Is that Ernie in the Sesame Street?
I was told it was like a programming thing, but it could have just been a whatever. I don't know.
I mean, in my world, we call that play therapy, and it's like I'm gonna hold the puppet up, and I'm gonna externalize a part of my personality, and I'm gonna talk with it. It's like.
We also say Elmo if we're going on too long about something.
Elmo.
Enough. Let's move on. Elmo.
Enough. Let's move on. When you say we, you're talking about just in your colleagues.
Yeah,
your
workspace. My working group. I have really, really wonderful colleagues. I'm very happy.
Well, you're blessed.
Very blessed in that way.
Yeah. So. No. But I was saying, for people who don't know what Stockholm syndrome is, do you want to define it for our audience?
No, you're the master.
Well, I'm gonna look it up.
You're the one with the masters in social.
When my daughters are like, I use a word and they're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, I could try and muddle through to define it for you, but I don't want to mislead you. So I just look it up. That's exactly what I'm going to do here. Because I could give it. Okay. So Stockholm syndrome, this is according to Google's Gemini AI overview. Stockholm syndrome is a psychological phenomenon where hostages or victims of abuse develop positive feelings empathy, or even loyalty toward their captors or abusers, often due to a coping mechanism in response to traumatic situations. Yeah. Okay. And I think, wasn't there, there's the real Anthony. Hold on, Cori. Again, just people who are listening to the audio podcast, Cori, I missed that. I'll have to, good thing this is being recorded. Cori slowly raised up the book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Who's the author on that, Cori? Robert F. Kennedy Jr., RFK, Bobby.
This is a very thick tome, by the way.
Yeah, that's a book that I would like to have read, but I don't know that I'm ever going to read it. I don't know that I'm ever going to. But let me just circle around and just say, because I'm a nerd and I'm thorough in this way. I just want to say, why is it called Stockholm Syndrome? In 1973, Jan Erik, or maybe Jan, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, Olsen, a convict on parole, took 4 employees, 3 women and 1 man, of Creditbanken, one of the largest banks in Stockholm, Sweden. He took them hostage during a failed bank robbery. Again, this is in 1973. He negotiated the release from prison of his friend Clark Olofsson to assist him. They held the hostages captive for 6 days in one of the bank's vaults. When the hostages were released, none of them would testify against either captor in court. Instead, they began raising money for their defense. And so Niels Bejerot, a Swedish criminologist, psychiatrist, invented the term after the Stockholm police asked him for assistance with analyzing the victims' reactions to the 1973 bank robbery and their status as hostages. As the idea of brainwashing was not a new concept, Bejerot, speaking on, quote, a newscast after the captives' release, described the hostages' reactions as a result of being brainwashed by their captors. Okay. I could go on and on, but I'll stop there. So you say that Stockholm Syndrome is, you're liking more and more that analogy to what again?
The 2 political parties.
So capturing the public, that
yes.
we are their captors, and we therefore,
right,
rather than seeing ourselves as being traumatized by the political parties, we are raising funds for them.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Say more.
Open this up more for dense people like myself who only know how to swim in the spirituality and psychology lane. Help me understand this political stuff where I'm very, very ignorant. How do you figure? How do you figure the political parties are traumatizing the American public?
Well, it's you've heard the term that DC's like the DC is the Hollywood for ugly people.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Where it's very much there's a lot of theatrics and a lot of stage playing, but I don't think they're really all on the same side, and that shows in the voting. Anytime the Democrats have power where they can do things, for example, Obama said, hey, day one, I'm going to codify Roe v. Wade. Day one came and he said, well, it's not, top of my agenda. What the Democrats, their strategy is that, hey, if we don't have the abortion, the Roe v. Wade thing, what are we going to fundraise on? Right. At least that's the Democratic strategist, which seems to be a likely story because they never do it. I thought Roe v. Wade would always be in place. The Democrats were supposed to codify it, and they could have. They had the power, they had the votes.
That was going to be my next question. Was it?
And anytime they have the power or the votes to do something, they don't do it.
But just in defense of what you're saying, I don't know if I'm defending it, but just in sort of what am I trying to look for to the most charitable interpretation of what you're saying is. God damn it! I don't know how to express myself here. That seems very cynical. That's not a charitable interpretation. That's why I stopped. It seems cynical, but so just because I could follow that logic, I can follow that, but just because you can connect those dots, doesn't necessarily make that so and make that the case. Now, if you were to say, okay, fair enough, like this is the most logical way. Like if A, B, and C, and D are all lining up in order, it seems to me like that's probably what's going on, Robin. If you want to convince me otherwise, you're going to have to present a case that is more compelling and makes more logical sense connecting these dots. I can't do that. But just because
a more recent example that actually ties into Jimmy Dore. This was kind of his campaign. Okay. I think it was 4 years ago. I don't know. We're getting older. Time is ephemeral. But
time is an illusion, Cori. Go ahead.
When they were trying to confirm Nancy Pelosi for her millionth term in Congress or whatever it was, there was a big call for the Progressive Caucus, if they withheld their votes confirming Nancy Pelosi, they actually had power. They had power. And the one thing was you'll hear AOC talk about it before she was elected, say, hey, we can't even get a floor vote on Medicare. We can't get that. What? And so this was the time. Hey, the Progressive Caucus, withhold your votes. Say, hey, Nancy Pelosi, you want another term? We want a floor vote on Medicare or Medicare for all, right? And what a floor vote means is that each congressman would be forced to vote for or against, and then they would need to defend that
record. Yeah.
Right. So if they could get a floor vote, then they could say, okay, here's the people that really are, are you for us or are you against us? They'll never do that. So yeah, the Progressive Caucus had that power. People were telling them, hey, take charge, do your thing, be progressive. No, they just folded. I said, no. That was something they could have done. And you also see AOC and Bernie are on a tour right now, right? They're getting everybody out to, they don't have any, what are they? It's like, hey, the people in office are bad. Give us some more money. Like, I don't get it. They only really seem to have power when they don't have power. They're like, oh, everything's so horrible, and then they get in office and what what were the accomplishments of the Democrats being in office? The Ukraine war, is that going well? I don't know. Gaza, I don't know. We're supposed to get a public option. There's supposed to be minimum wage. There's supposed to be things for working class people. But when people are like, hey, we have all these disasters in the nation. Hey, Hawaii burned up, East Palestine, Ohio, trail derailment, whole place. People can't even live there. They get sick. Status Coup News has had great reporting on that. We have these disasters and people get $700. What are they going to do with that? But then, hey, another $20 billion to Ukraine. Sure. Okay. And people are like, hey, what about us? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then that's where the Stockholm thing comes in. It's like, if you have any sort of allegiance or people get riled up like, oh, hey, come on, why, it's all these woke liberal Democrats, or it's all these MAGA red hat people. Like, it's, if we got back to the ethos of the 99%, you'd see that whether you're wearing a red hat or like ear gauges and pink hair, we all want a living wage and healthcare, right? Like, I think we could all agree on that. It's unfortunate that we become so divided as a country, even though we should be more united.
Yeah. Well, again, every time I talk to someone who's much more well-informed than I am, I feel this part of me get a lot of shame for the sort of the ostrich. We were talking about this on our way home from the Jimmy Dore show, and yeah. I was talking about, like, referencing the Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert's rally to restore insanity, and saying all these voices in the information system, the loud voices are the ones that get the most airtime, and the sane middle are just trying to do their laundry and take their kids to soccer, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, I very much identify with that, but I also feel shame about like anyone who would accuse me of having my ostrich head in the sand would be well within their rights. And again, the reason why that's shameful is because if everyone does that, I mean, that's when you have a government that can completely shift and transform on you, take power away from the people, and then we end up in the dystopian,
we end up deifying them for that. You say, oh, thank you for protecting me. Outside's scary. I wanted to stay inside.
Yeah. So what was I going to say? There was something else I was going to say there, and instead of just like self-flagellating myself. So in my, the things that occupy most of my time, so instead of putting my hand in my neck in there, my head in the sand, I'm.
You can do both.
Well, no, I'm.
We'll
you can do both. You can do both.
Right.
Yeah, but I guess what's occupying my attention is more of the esoteric and the spiritual realm. I'm a mental health professional, and I'm sort of obsessed with finding the most potent and powerful and efficacious way to help someone heal their trauma. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I'm just like that, and then wanting to be entertained in comedy. It's like, but so like most of my news that I'm getting is listening to PBS NewsHour, the Face the Nation and Meet the Press, and Real Time with Bill Maher, Jon Stewart. That's it. And so I don't go deep down into the policy, into the legislation, and I've been a poor history student. And so when people make references to things that have happened, and I'm like, whether or not I've been alive, like I really ought to know that, but I don't. But all of this is to say, let me sweep that all over on this side of my desk and say,
this is the dangerous story of what happens if you don't follow sports.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I don't follow sports, so you get sucked into other matches.
Yeah. So instead of being obsessed with like, did you see the Maryland game? They're playing the Gators. It's like, instead of rambling about sports, you ramble about geopolitics. Yeah.
Yeah. Except the only thing I have to say about my sport is it's stupid.
What sport are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about politics?
Right.
Oh, okay.
It's like if you were like a hockey fan, you're like, but hockey sucks.
Yeah. Like when is Tulsi Gabbard going to get her, break
get
the
her
record?
Story straight. Take a side. Don't flip flop every day.
Let me come back to when we talk about it's a shame that we're so divided. It's a shame. In my focus, it's like, yes, when a couple is dividing, splitting up, when a family is disintegrating, when an individual in themselves are falling apart, what heals all of those situations, and there's myriad differences of like, just from your garden variety conflict to abuse and
wide spectrum,
substance abuse, all sorts of stuff. Intergenerational trauma. So, but what heals all that is this love. Cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not going to go off on a tirade here on cognitive behavioral therapy. Love it or hate it, it has its place, and it can do a lot of good, and it can help people. It is the gold standard in the U.S. For veterans, and it's the most robust, well-researched model of psychotherapy. So it has a lot of most people know about it. All the apps, the free apps are going to use like, CBT journaling and stuff like that. But cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't have a love factor. It doesn't necessarily have a love factor in it. And what I mean by that is for real healing to happen, you do need the essence of love. And I know that sounds like a fortune cookie or like the end of a Disney movie, but it's true. And in terms of unifying the culture and the sick society that we live in, or like compare, you know, I don't know if we can go back to a time when the society in the United States was ever healthy. Okay. But people can make the case that we're like getting sicker and sicker, especially with like technology and social media. And like, just if you want to quantify that with like rate of suicide, rates of depression, loneliness, all that stuff. Okay. But if we want to heal it all, yeah, the people in power need to not forget that we're all on the same team and we're all part of the same family. To not get hung up on the identitarian differences and realize that actually not to go so like anthropological, like we're all part of the human family. Yeah, we all get that. But like literally, not metaphorically, not a figurative, we are literally all in the same family. And if we could, it's like, but there's lots of dysfunctional families. So why would we expect Congress to function any differently than like my fucked up family that like can't get together for Easter or whatever, right? Like, yeah, it's not, no one said this was easy, but in order to heal, we have to really kind of treat our, whatever the role is as a politician, as a senator or a House of Congress or a Supreme Court justice or a military official, a cabinet member, the president himself, one day herself, like we have to treat them as we're all part of the same family. And can we have basic dignity and respect? And you need to earn trust. If you can't earn trust, it's going to stay disintegrated and it's going to stay polarized and it's going to disintegrate. I mean, it's either going to stay the same, which is not possible just in all the laws of physics. It's not going to stay the same. Entropy probably wins. It probably just gets a little bit worse and worse gradually. Hard to notice if it's really, really gradual, but it will slide and get worse and worse. So we need to be able to trust one another. And we need to be able to feel it's like earned trust, earned safety, and respect doesn't have to be earned. Like, I'm going to respect you. You don't have to, you can spit in my face, which means you're not really, that wouldn't be earning my respect, but I'm still going to respect you. You don't have to earn it. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to treat you with personhood. I'm going to treat you with dignity. And I'm going to be open and curious about what you have to say, open to being influenced by you instead of seeing you as a boogie monster and believing all of the things in my tribe and my bubble that says like, don't fucking listen to Cori. He's full of shit. He's a big boogie monster. It's like, dude, well then we've lost if I'm believing all of that. You're no longer a person worthy of dignity and respect. You're this boogeyman. I'm fighting this avatar instead of the real you, who you really are. You know, right. Is my making sense?
Yeah. So you're saying that there isn't enough emphasis on the societal implementation of cognitive behavioral therapy?
No. I was using CBT as an example of there's something critically missing in that very, very popular model of helping people get better. And that thing that's critically missing is this loving presence. Cognitive behavioral therapy talks about restructuring beliefs, changing behaviors, challenging assumptions and thoughts, but it's very intellectual.
Are you suggesting a spiritual or higher power that's missing?
This is the one thing I agree with Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay, this is the one part where I agree with him. Yes.
It sounded like you're saying.
But listen. But hold on. But look. If we invoke spirituality, that can be very triggering for people. So rather than talking about spirituality, like the word love can also be triggering. But it's still something that you don't have to be behind any kind of a dogma or religious upbringing. Like love is pretty, everyone knows what love is. You don't have to define it. You know what love is, and respect. So yeah, it's this is again, I was 20 minutes earlier, I was saying people accuse me of being idealistic. It sounds very idealistic, but it is.
I ratted you out as being a Sunday school teacher, by the way.
Well, you just ratted me out of the pie. I didn't talk about that public. No, I'm just kidding. No, who did you rat me out to? What do you mean?
At game day.
Night? Oh yeah. Or game day.
Yeah. No one knew. I was like, hey, did you hear? And no one knew.
Well, it's relatively new. I've only sat in on my girls' Sunday school class 2 times now, the first time I was the Dore person, and the second time I was the Dore guy. The first time I was the doorkeeper, and the second time I was the storyteller.
Okay, so you're not actually teaching.
Well, I'm sitting down and I'm reading about what is Lent and body of Christ, the Eucharist, body of Christ, bread of heaven, and all that stuff. And anyway, so no, my point is like trying to heal our society requires this basic. I think if I ask people to love your neighbor, obviously we're sounding like Jesus, but like I'm just talking about basic respect. And not treating someone the way your colleagues want you to treat them based on the narratives and beliefs they have about the other side. The right and the left are extremely polarized. And this is what happens inside of an individual's nervous system in themselves. Part of me wants to drink. Part of me knows that I'm going to feel shitty and I won't be able to run the trails the next day. It's like people are polarized in their own head. Of course, we're polarized in society, but what I'm saying is the things that heal and integrate people as at the individual level also work isomorphically out the system layers, the level of the couple, the family, the neighbor, the community, the society. It works, but it requires respect, treating someone with personhood, dignity. And I think that all has it, like that all can't really operate just from an intellectual, like, oh, let's step one, treat them with personhood. It's like, you have to fucking feel that. You have to feel the love for someone. They deserve your respect, whether they have earned it or not. And people will be like, no, they don't. They called my mom a whore or whatever. Like, it's like, okay, but that's activating. All that's doing is triggering stuff that makes you want to like fight back or defend yourself. And that's just more of the energy that keeps us disintegrated. I'm rambling. I'm very much on a tirade here. I'm sorry, Cori. I apologize to all the listeners.
You sound like a deplorable in a basket.
Yeah. As long as it's a basket full of fried pickles, I'm okay with it.
A garbage person. No, I don't know.
Thank you for not gendering me.
Yeah, garbage is not binary.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really good joke, by the way, about with Jimmy's. I got a problem with the bees.
Bees.
They're not binary. They're suggesting that sexes are binary. But I thought there's a whole spectrum.
Yeah. Bisexual. Yeah. Bisexual implies that there's only two genders. Yeah. He's like, gotcha. He's like, I gotcha.
Yeah,
of course, everyone's entitled to their own perspective. And I know that idea of like radical subjectivity, you know, that's where it's like, if I identify as, you know, a red-eared slider, that's a kind of a turtle.
I'll say slide on.
Native to Maryland. Then you need to treat me like a red-eared slider.
Yeah.
That's
only carrots for you, sir.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, I actually, even though it sounds like I'm mocking, and I'm just being playful here, but I very much subscribe to radical subjectivity. And again, that's informed from what I know works in healing, in helping people heal themselves. They have to not treat the thing inside of them as a boogeyman. They have to not treat it as like, oh, I have the one and only truth. They have to be humble and curious and be like, okay, well, let me just like, maybe I can learn something here.
It's kind of like a Lars and the Real Girl situation.
I wish I got that reference. I've heard of Lars. Yeah, I know, but I don't get the reference. Because again, is this one of those I'm sheltered and didn't have cable growing up, or who's Lars and the Real Girl?
You're busy raising a family or something.
Okay, so it's more recent. It's more recent.
Yeah, I guess it's an old movie, but it's basically where the guy has so his mother died during childbirth, and so he's like really scared of women, so he like orders a doll, and this is like a, you know, young man. Ryan Gosling plays Lars, you know. He's like, but he's like traumatized, just women in general, so he is dating this like doll, which it's like a sex doll, but I guess he didn't know, and so the whole community treats it like it's real, like, oh, okay, Lars, oh, okay, let's see, and does she want to, oh, okay, and then they start getting the doll like involved in the community, like, and like, oh no, she's busy, she's not going to be able to hang out with you, she's going to be helping me with this thing. And so they start just like developing a schedule for her, and then he can't see her, and then he finally develops a relationship with a real
yeah,
right,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense why you would associate to that. And I also think about the emperor's new clothes, right? Like everyone sees that this is not a real girl, but to this guy, she's real. And, makes sense why you'd associate to that with radical subjectivity. And a lot of people are like, that's dangerous. It is dangerous to I mean, I see this all the time in family therapy when people call my office and they're like, they've got a problem with their son or daughter, being trans or something. They're like, where'd this come from? I don't understand. It's like, it makes sense to me that someone would be scared. Again, we're talking about honoring someone's fear, that they would be scared if I co-sign, or let's take it out of I know trans is such a hot button issue. Let's talk about psychosis and like indulging someone's hallucination. It's like, hey, I have an imaginary friend who sits by my bedside and reads me stories to help me go to sleep at night. And like, okay, can anyone else see it? No, I'm the only one who
is he here now with us? Right.
He's here right now. I call him Saint Nick. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, but people are afraid to co-sign to what they see as a delusion, right? It's like we have this paradigm of what is reality, consensus reality. If we can use our senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, all that stuff, if everyone can agree on it, now it's consensus reality. But this guy is cuckoo because he's talking to someone that's not there. It's like, so here's the problem with that. I get why the fear is if we act as if it's real when it's not real, then we're indulging the hallucination, we're indulging psychosis, and their grip on reality they'll slide further and further into madness, and we don't want that for them because we love them. I get that. The problem with that is if you treat the hallucination, if you treat the person who's having that interaction with the thing that consensus reality won't recognize, you can actually help them heal. So I'm on board. Again, it doesn't make intuitive sense. The fear makes good sense to be like, don't have them talk to the hallucination. Don't do that. That's bad. That's wrong. Give them their medicine so that the hallucination goes away, and then they'll be able to hold a job. It's like, okay, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a short-term solution. It doesn't actually heal what's disintegrated. If they're talking to something that's not real, again, I ask for humility, curiosity, patience, and saying, okay, how are you feeling is this a positive interaction? How do you feel when this being is talking to you? Well, I feel comforted. I feel loved. I don't feel as alone. Okay. Is there more you want me to know? When you have patience and you actually go down the rabbit hole to find out what's going on there, you're not actually sliding them deeper and deeper into madness. You're learning more about their internal world, which I would submit to you. It's like, that's the world that we exist in dreams. We all lose our mind when we're dreaming. That's not a real world. That's not consensus reality. That is our subjective landscape. That is the realm. That is the spirit world. And if we treat these beings as if they do have personhood, we just have to look at how is the person feeling. Now, if you ask them a question, how does this being that we can't see, how do they make you feel? And they say, I feel scared. I don't like them. They yell at me. They call me names. They tell me to kill myself. Okay. That's when we take the being seriously, but now we know it's got something in it that's not of this world. It's not human, and it's not healed. This is an unwell being. I would conceptualize it as an unwell ancestor. And yes, we actually want to help this person let go of the attachment to this unwell ancestor because it doesn't belong in their body, in their mind, in their heart. And we can do that. We can do that without medication. And there are spiritual interventions that help people heal from that kind of stuff, which is why I was like, it's so weird to be agreeing with Vivek Ramaswamy right now, watching the Republican primary process, because he was advocating for that. And I want to talk to a lot more people who were alive and conscious and like not children when the Reagan administration closed down the mental health hospitals and let all those people out from. I'm not saying the treatment that they were getting was like the revolutionary, like, heal, transform, get off your meds, you can actually reintegrate and be better. I'm not saying that was happening.
Plenty of Nurse Ratchets out there, I'm sure.
Oh God. Anyway. Okay.
You're not one of them though, Robin.
I hope not. No, I'm definitely not. Cori, I've rambled at you long enough. I want to ask both of us, is there anything that we haven't touched on here or shared with, any circles that we need to close, or any new topics that you want to introduce or that I want to introduce while we have this conversation together for our listeners and our audience?
No.
Just say that again.
Like Nancy Reagan, just say no.
Wait, was she the one who's responsible for, is it Tipper Gore for the explicit lyrics on CDs? Is that Tipper Gore? But Nancy Reagan was just say no to drugs. Which was that the Dare campaign? Or was that was the precursor? That was proto Dare? I don't know.
Yeah, we grew up with Dare.
How effective was Dare?
Well, I won the essay competition, so I got to read my essay on the radio in 5th grade.
What?
Yeah.
So you were a 5th grader and there was an essay competition. What radio station did you read it on?
WKP no one listens to. I don't know. The one we did listen to it because we knew like when it was going to come on. There was they had like a reverb, like an echo on it. It sounded really weird when I heard it, but it was whatever.
Was that your first time in a radio? Did you went into a studio?
My only time that I think I've ever been in a radio station. Maybe the Washington Post had radio stuff, but I don't know. I didn't really see it.
Yeah. That must have been impactful for you to win the whole school's competition and then get to.
No, there were like 3 or 4 of us. There are 3 or 4.
Oh, winners, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you remember? I know I'm asking you to claw back into the 1995 or whatever, but do you remember what your take was on the?
Oh, so I was surprised that I won because I did it like I remember doing it specifically like the day before. It was like a Monday it was due, and I did it like Sunday afternoon, and I'm just like, okay, summarize paragraph, conclusion, done. And that won. So it was I had no there were no specific takes or no insights or anything. I was just like, this is what you want, right? Okay, here. So
well, yeah. So because I was imagining it's like
it was kind of like a Chat GPT summary, but it was a Cori, is this what you want?
Well, that's it, right. That's like like when you have to debate for or against an argument, and you're like, okay, well, I'm against this, but you want me to be for it, so I'm going to write all the talking points that are for it. You know?
Yeah, already in 5th grade, I was having some questions about things, but don't want to go down that road. It was just like, it's like, hey, there's a cop in the school, and he's telling us this thing. I'm going to go with it. Not gonna ask too many questions. I'll save that for senior year of high school in health class, and I'll save my real questions for that one. That didn't go better. It went, yeah.
When you say health class, you're talking about like sex ed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not gonna get into that either.
No, I say we get into it. No, I'm just kidding.
No. It was just I had. There were factual disagreements that I had because we had the internet at that time, and there were things you could look up that were factually true or not true. Mm-hmm. And so me and somebody else in high school did a project on something, and we had facts, and we're like, hey, here's the thing. And it didn't go over due to various things, but it's one of those,
You didn't have alternative facts with your co-projector.
No, I had like the definition of facts, mm-hmm. which weren't gonna fly in that class.
So. Well, I want to hear about this off air in the virtual green room. I want to thank you, Cori, for coming on the show. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Hey, anytime you want to schedule me for 2 hours at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday, I will be happy to block out that time.
As long as I give you advance notice.
Notice. I have a very, very flexible, great co-working job thing going on, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Do you anything that you want to promote or point listener, any things that you think that people, like not enough people know about this, go, check out. You mentioned a news source that you, I can't remember what it was now, but it was a news outlet.
I actually saw a guy interviewed, and I've seen just antiwar.com is good.
Okay.
There's a lot of great, you can get headlines and they'll provide a little bit more context. So just antiwar.com is a good one. Yeah, and you can always reach out to me directly, shoot me an email, just cori.grieb@gmail.com. Always available. Actually, after your last podcast, I talked to Josh Foster for a little while. We talked for like an hour just about like Bitcoin stuff. So I'm always available if you want to reach out.
Yeah.
Just hanging out, watching podcasts and playing video games and seeing what happens.
That's one of the joys of this show is the unexpected and unforeseen connections and reconnections that happen. So thank you for sharing all that, Cori. And again, thanks for coming on.
Happy to be here.